She believed in love, in true love, the kind you see in movies and dream of experiencing someday. Camilla was a simple woman, the kind who gets emotional easily, who smiles easily, but who dreams big. At 28, she worked as a receptionist at a neighborhood clinic, and even with the demanding routine and tight salary, she never stopped believing that good things were to come. It was on a rainy afternoon, at a nearly empty bus stop, that she met Daniel. He was polite, kind, and had a serene gaze that exuded confidence. That day, he offered her his umbrella and, without realizing it, also opened a space to enter her heart. And it all happened quickly. Within a few months, they were already talking about living together. Camilla fell madly in love, not just with him, but with what he represented. A different future. With Daniel, she felt safe. They made plans, a simple wedding on the beach, 2 children, a dog named Bento, and a house with a porch. It was a common dream, but for her, it was everything. Daniel seemed like the perfect man. He texted every day, made surprises, said he had never loved anyone like that before, and Camilla, vulnerable and devoted, believed every word. But fate often has cruel plans disguised as romance. It was on an ordinary morning, one of those when the world seems to continue as usual, that Camilla felt something different. A slight nausea, a persistent tiredness. She thought it was just work stress. But a week later, the suspicion turned into certainty. She was pregnant. Her heart burst with joy. She held the test in her hands as if it were a winning lottery ticket. She could hardly wait to tell the man who claimed to love her so much. And she told him. With tears in her eyes and hands trembling with emotion, she showed the test to Daniel. He didn't say anything. His silence cut through the air like a sharp knife. The next day, he disappeared. First, he stopped replying to messages. Then, he blocked Camilla on all social media. She would call, desperate, and it would go straight to voicemail. No explanations, no goodbyes, no chance to understand what was happening. Camilla wasn't just abandoned. She was betrayed at the most vulnerable moment of her life. Days later came the revelation that destroyed everything. Daniel was with someone else. It had been for some time. She was the other woman without knowing it. The life plans, the declared love, it was all just a well-crafted farce. The same mouth that said, "I love you," said the same words to another woman. The same promise of children and a future he shared with someone else. Camilla fell into an abyss of pain. How could she continue with a pregnancy like that? How could she keep breathing with her heart in pieces? But at that moment, even in the midst of despair, something began to change inside her. Something began to change inside her. Camilla cried for days. She felt she had lost not only the man she loved, but also her own dignity. She was ashamed to go out in the street, to look her mother or her work colleagues in the eye. Her belly wasn't even showing yet, but the pain already consumed everything. The days dragged on, and the nights seemed endless. She worked exhausted with constant nausea, having to hide her pregnancy from everyone, while inside she screamed for help. She went to appointments alone, underwent tests with her heart in her throat, and returned home with no one to share either her fear or her hope. And when she told her family, the reaction wasn't the welcoming one she had expected. "You trusted too much, Camilla. That's just how men are. Now, you have to deal with it, right?" The pain of abandonment was multiplied by the judgment. She didn't want to hear advice. She just wanted a hug, a word that would say, "Everything will be all right." But it didn't stay that way, not immediately. Bills started piling up, and she had to sell her new cell phone, cancel the courses she was taking, and even consider quitting her job because she couldn't bear the weight of that loneliness any longer. The worst moment was the birth. Alone, in a cold room in a public hospital, holding back tears while other women were accompanied by their partners. Camilla held her own hand. When the baby was born, she cried like she had never cried before, from pain, from relief, from fear, and from love. That morning, with the baby in her arms, something finally made sense. Everything she needed was there. In the innocent eyes of such a small being, Camilla found the strength she thought she had lost. This is the reality for many women. Stories like Camilla's happen every day, but few have the courage to tell them. Few have a voice, but we can change that. If you believe stories like this need to be told, comment below. Pain won't silence me. Let's show that no one is alone. Leave a like if this story touched you and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any other real and exciting stories like this one. Because when we share the pain, it weighs less. And Camilla's story is not over yet. Camilla never imagined she would experience a pregnancy like this, alone, judged, hurt inside and out, while the world kept turning as if nothing had happened. Every morning, she put on the same simple clothes, tied her hair back with an old elastic band, and forced a smile. She walked to the bus stop with dragging steps, her body tired and her heart even more so. Her belly was beginning to grow, but nobody, absolutely nobody, asked how she was. It was as if everyone around her had decided to ignore the existence of that new life, or worse, as if they were waiting for her to ask for help so they could then point the finger. Her co-workers whispered when she walked by. The supervisor made snide remarks about women who get involved with just anyone. Even at home, she felt her mother's suspicious gaze, who made no secret of her displeasure. "You should have been smarter, Camilla," she would say, as if it were easy to foresee the cowardice of someone who swore love every day. But what hurt the most wasn't people's silence. It was his absence. Daniel disappeared as if he had never existed. Not a message, not a connection, not even a question about the baby. Camilla found herself wondering if he already knew that his son had been born, if he thought about him, if he felt any guilt. But deep down, she knew better, and that was what hurt the most. The pregnancy was progressing, and the physical weight was only a small part of everything she was carrying. During the ultrasounds, she stared at the screen and cried softly. She cried from fear, insecurity, and loneliness. The other pregnant women were accompanied by husbands, mothers, sisters. Camilla held her own hand, trying to find some comfort in the sound of the baby's heartbeat. It was the only sound that calmed the storm inside her. The nights were even worse. When the house was silent, the thoughts screamed. She wondered if she could be a good mother, if she could afford everything the baby needed, if her son would one day ask, "Where's my dad?" And what would she answer? The money was no longer enough. She had to cut back on food, stop buying new clothes even when her old ones no longer fit. She cut everything she could. Electricity during the day, rationed bath water, she even saved on gas to make it last the whole month. And even then, it wasn't enough. There were days when she thought about giving up on everything. There were nights when she cried so much she couldn't breathe, hugging her pillow, trying to stifle her sobs so as not to worry anyone. But not even that seemed to bother anyone. It was as if she had disappeared, and then came the most dreaded and most anticipated day, the birth. She arrived at the hospital with a small backpack and a broken heart. No one was with her. She was attended to by tired nurses, hurried glances, and doctors with no time to spare. She was in labor, and yet no one held her hand. No one said, "Everything will be all right." Camilla screamed in pain, both physical and emotional. When the baby was born, she didn't cry tears of joy. She cried tears of despair, but also a relief. Because for the first time in months, she was no longer alone. The baby was placed in her arms, and she gazed at him for long minutes, trying to understand how such a small life could carry so much weight, so much meaning. He was innocent. He was not to blame for anything. And at that moment, she silently promised that she would do anything for him. She left the hospital 2 days later with the baby wrapped in a borrowed blanket. The taxi was too expensive, so she took 2 buses to get home. People watched, but no one offered help. The baby was crying, and she didn't know how to soothe it. She was scared, hungry, tired, and guilty. He arrived home and no one was there. He sat on the sofa with his son in his arms and cried for the 100th time. But that day, for the first time, she cried differently. It wasn't just pain. It was also the beginning of a strength that was starting to emerge. Camilla's story is indeed painful, but it is also the reality for many women across the country. Women who face abandonment, prejudice, judgment, and yet keep going out of love for their children. And perhaps now is the time to give these women a voice. If you've made it this far and this story touched you, write in the comments, "You are not alone," or "Go Camilla." These words may seem small, but for those who go through this, they mean everything. And if you also believe that real and exciting stories need to be told, like this video and subscribe to the channel, because what comes next will touch you even more. Camilla's story is not over yet. Camilla spent the first few weeks on high alert. Every cry from the baby made her heart race. Every sleepless night made her question if she was doing everything right. She read about motherhood online, watched videos on her old phone, and tried to learn on her own what so many women usually lack support to experience. But she had no one. The house was small and stuffy, but inside, a new life was beginning. The days were silent. The neighbors barely greeted her, relatives rarely came, and when they did, they only talked about her absent father or the wrong choices she had made. But Camilla didn't want to talk about Daniel anymore. Not because I had moved on, but because that pain had already taken up too much space inside her, and now another feeling was beginning to grow. Something different, purer, that only increased each time she looked at that little face in her lap. It was in silence that Camilla began her journey of overcoming challenges. No applause, no social media posts, no motivational quotes. Just her, the baby, and the soft sound of a love that was born without asking permission. Each smile from his son was like medicine. It was in his eyes that she found the strength she lacked, and it was there, in that silent connection between mother and son, that life began to make sense again. She was still in pain. Yes, the wounds of betrayal, abandonment, and the harsh words she heard during her pregnancy were still open. But it wasn't resentment she harbored. It was a desire to be better, not for revenge, but for love. Love for that tiny, dependent being who asked for nothing more than presence. Love for herself, who was still breathing, even after so many nights wanting to disappear. The days continued to be tough. She would wake up before sunrise, wash clothes by hand, cook what she had, and feed her son with the little she could afford. The refrigerator was more empty than full. The electricity bill was overdue, and the rent was piling up. But the baby was clean, fed, and loved. Camilla worked magic with what she had. She collected used clothes from donations, repaired the old stroller she received from a distant neighbor, and sewed small pieces of cloth to make cloth diapers. She improvised what she couldn't afford to buy, but he never neglected what was essential: care, affection, and protection. She learned to fend for herself like never before. She created a network of single mothers online, exchanged experiences through messages, asked for advice in groups, and gradually realized that she wasn't as alone as she had imagined. Many women were experiencing the same silence, the same pain, the same invisible struggle that no one sees, but that consumes everything from within. And amidst this silent chaos, she began to see beauty in simple things. The baby's first toothless smile. Her little eyes sparkled when she approached. The way he would stop crying just from hearing her voice. These small gestures, which no one else saw, were the fuel to keep going. Even though she was exhausted, Camilla started recording these moments in a notebook. She wrote letters to her son. She talked about what it was like raising him alone, about the difficulties, the victories, the fears, and above all, the love. She wrote everything down in the hope that one day he would grow up and be able to read it, and to know that, even when all seemed lost, she chose to continue. Camilla hasn't forgotten the pain. She simply learned to live with it. And more than that, she decided that pain would not define who she would be as a mother. She promised herself that she would raise her son with love and affection without passing on to him the burden of his father's absence. Daniel might have disappeared, but she would still be there, every day, even when tired, even with a broken heart. Because above all, Camilla knew that the boy was innocent, and she deserved all the best that she could offer. Not what the world considered best, but what she could give that was most precious, the love that remained after everyone else had left. Camilla was betrayed, abandoned, judged, but she never stopped loving the one who needed her most. And that is perhaps the most beautiful and the hardest part of this story, because there is no greater pain than being rejected at the most vulnerable moment in life. But also, there is no force more powerful than that of a mother who decides to move forward out of love for her child. This is the reality that many people don't see. It's the side of motherhood that doesn't show up in pretty pictures. It is the struggle of women who have no choice but to resist. Camilla remains silent today. She hasn't yet shouted victory. Her life hasn't been sorted out. She still cries in secret some nights, but she gets up every day. If you've watched this video this far, it's because this story has touched something deep within you. And I want to ask you something now, from the bottom of my heart. Leave a word in the comments that represents this silent force. Could it be resilience, love without measure, or even mother's strength? Let's transform this space into a place of support, listening and welcoming. Because stories like Camilla's are real, they are sad, but they need to be told. If you believe this, leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs to hear this message.